We already have some more trades to talk about. The most recent video on my channel was us going over multiple trades in one video, and now we have 3 more to talk about today. All of these trades actually took place yesterday, and you guys know me, I love talking about trades, but at this rate, let's slow down a little bit, GMs. Let's actually save some for deadline day, so that day isn't a complete dud. I guess we'll just go over these trades in chronological order, so starting off with the first of 2 Florida Panthers trades. This one saw them sending Frank Vetrano to the New York Rangers for a 2022 4th round pick. There's really not a whole lot to unpack when it comes to this trade. Vetrano was definitely an expendable player for the Florida Panthers. A lot of guys passed him over on the depth chart over the past couple of seasons. So getting an asset in return for a player that you really don't need, I mean, that's a no-brainer. And also in doing this trade, probably the most valuable asset the Panthers got in return aside from that 4th round pick was about $2.5 million in cap space. And looking at this trade in hindsight now, it was obviously foreshadowing a little bit because the Florida Panthers then made use of the 4th round pick they got in return and their cap space to go and make another trade, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And quickly touching on this deal from the point of view of the Rangers, I think it's fine. They add a little bit of depth here, getting a guy like Frank Vetrano who's versatile, can play the center position and the wing. Prior to this season, he scored 15 or more goals 3 consecutive times, including 24 goals back in the 2018-19 season. If I had to guess, I would say Vetrano probably slots in on the Rangers' 3rd line. He adds a scoring threat to that team's bottom 6, which I feel like they probably needed a little bit more of. So those are my thoughts on the Frank Vetrano deal. Again, not a whole lot to unpack there. Let's now move on to the next trade, which I feel like is definitely a little bit more interesting. It was a deal between the Seattle Kraken and the Calgary Flames, a deal that saw the Calgary Flames acquire Calle Jarnkrok from the Kraken in exchange for a 2022 2nd round pick, which is Florida's. They got that in the Sam Bennett trade, a 2023 3rd round pick, and a 2024 7th round pick. The Calgary Flames right now may be the hottest team in the National Hockey League. They look like legit contenders, and they got even better by making this trade. If you guys have been subscribed to the channel for a while, you would know I'm a pretty big fan of Calle Jarnkrok. I talked about him a good bit leading up to the expansion draft. He's a player who can really do a little bit of everything, and he's not the type of guy you have to worry about if he's going to fit in your system or not. I feel like Calle Jarnkrok is the type of player who could go to any team and be a solid contributor for that team, no matter where he's playing in the lineup, whether he's on special teams or whether he's not. Throughout his career, he's always had very solid defensive impacts, and he's a lock to score in the 15-goal range pretty much every season. He's also very experienced. He's played 63 total playoff games in his career. I really like this pickup for the Flames. I would say the price may be a tiny bit steep. Jarnkrok is set to become a UFA at the end of the season, but I feel like he's definitely the kind of guy Calgary could afford to retain depending on how this works out. And for the Kraken, I mean, this is a no-brainer. They've been one of the worst teams in the NHL for the entire season. It makes sense that they should sell off as many pending UFAs as possible, stockpile draft picks, so it was real nice for them getting 3 draft picks in this one trade. And I'd be pretty surprised if the Kraken are done making moves. I would imagine Mark Giordano is going to be dealt over the next couple of days, maybe a guy like Marcus Johansson as well. So those are my thoughts on the Calle Jarnkrok deal. I think Seattle got a very solid return, and I think Jarnkrok is a fantastic pickup for the Flames. So overall, I would say both teams did pretty well here. Now let's move on to the big trade. This one happened a little bit later last night between the Montreal Canadiens and the Florida Panthers. The Panthers acquired defenseman Ben Chiarot from the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal also retained 50% of Ben Chiarot's cap hit in this deal in exchange for a 2023 1st round pick, a 2022 4th round pick, which they got in the Frank Vetrano deal, and also prospect Ty Smolonic, who was a 3rd round pick, 74th overall by the Panthers in the 2020 draft. I'm not gonna lie, when I originally seen the news break of this trade and I saw the return that the Montreal Canadiens got, I was a little bit surprised. I mean, there was a lot of talk and speculation, that maybe Montreal could fetch a 1st round pick in exchange for Ben Chiarot, and just a 1st round pick by itself for Ben Chiarot, a lot of people, including myself, kind of thought that that would be a pretty steep overpayment. So the fact that the Montreal Canadiens not only get a 1st round pick in this deal, but also a 4th and a pretty decent prospect. Ty Smolonic has 22 points in 38 games this season for Quinnipiac University. If you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, I feel like you have to be pumped about this return. If you're Kent Hughes, you have to be pretty happy with how this worked out as well. Now, with that being said, let's talk about this deal from the point of view of the Florida Panthers acquiring Ben Chiarot here, because they've been getting a lot of criticism since making this trade, and I will say I do think they overpaid massively, but I'm definitely not going to sit here and say that Ben Chiarot is as bad as a lot of people make him out to be. I know the advanced analytics are terrible this season. Defensively, he really hasn't been great, but I do think this is a player that can help the Florida Panthers, especially in the postseason, and that is why they're acquiring Ben Ben Chiarot here. You have to remember that. Chiarot's game is a lot more impactful in the playoffs, where he's probably going to get away with a lot more cross checks and a lot more penalties that he wouldn't get away with in the regular season. He was definitely a very important player for the Montreal Canadiens when they made it to the Stanley Cup Finals last year. That experience, I think, is going to benefit other defensemen on this team, like a Mackenzie Weegar, like an Aaron Ekblad, guys that don't really have a lot of postseason experience. So am I a fan of this deal for the Florida Panthers? No, I think they could have used those assets elsewhere and acquired a better player for that type of package that they gave up for Chiarot, but I will say I see where the Florida Panthers are coming from in making this trade. And I said this about the Josh Manson deal the other day, I'll say it again here about the Florida Panthers. If Florida wins the Stanley Cup with Ben Chiarot on the team, you really think they're going to care that they overpaid for him? Definitely not. So it's going to be interesting to see how this deal works out, how Ben Chiarot plays in Florida. Florida definitely has a tendency to get the most out of their players. I imagine Ben Chiarot is going to perform a lot better in Florida than he did in Montreal for, the first 3 quarters of the season. But that is pretty much going to wrap up today's video. Those are my thoughts on all 3 of the trades that took place yesterday. I'm definitely interested to hear your guys' thoughts on the deals as well, especially if your favorite team was involved in any of the trades that took place. Let me know all of your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you guys enjoyed today's video and you're excited for the deadline, then be sure to drop this video a like. That is the best way to show your support. And if you want to stay up to date on all the trades that happen over the next week in the National Hockey League, then be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk to you all soon.